Coming to you from the murder house on the hill. The horror. It's the little podcast of horrors with James, Christina, and Chris.
Well, welcome to Little Podcast of Horrors. We got a totally new setup for this episode. Normally, whenever we're recording, we are all three in different locations, but this time, James is the lone man out, whereas I and Christina are over here at her house recording.
Hello.
So, yes. But anyway, I'm Chris.
I'm Christina.
I'm James, all by myself.
All by himself. He's all over there. And today in our studio, we also
That I'm
have
not in.
that James is not in because his punk ass has to live in Dallas, Texas. Well, Carrollton, Texas, to be exact.
You want to give him my address? Maybe my social security number?
I didn't give him your address. Carrollton's the lone people like, I shall find you, James. You're here in the city somewhere. When I find you, it's going down.
Well, I mean, given the effect my sex appeal is going to have on everybody, we're going to have some really committed stalkers. So I need to be ready for this.
Hey, I mean, whatever. But also in our studio today, we've got a few guests.
Especially since they know I'm alone and vulnerable.
That's right, kids. He's alone and vulnerable. How about that? We have in our studio. That's what we're going to call it today. It's our studio. We also have some guests.
Do you know who you don't have in your studio?
You.
That's right.
You. That's right. We have you digitally. We have Christina's sister and one of my best friends, Miss Heather.
Hello.
She's our number one fan.
Thanks for letting me crash.
Of course. And then, of course, we have the gorgeous, amazingly talented, intelligent
James.
Lafayette. Hey, what up? Today is episode
12.
Welcome to episode
12
of Little Podcast of Horrors, and I will be giving the story today. Is everybody ready? Are you ready to hear my tale? So we're going to be discussing something that's been very interesting to me for a long, long time, which is there life after death? And something that's been interesting me to be a long time, because as I get older, I start thinking about death more and more. And I know that sounds morbid, but I mean,
I think it's natural. I mean, doesn't everybody kind of think about death all day, every day?
I don't know about all day, every day.
Mine or others?
Yeah. I mean, I like occasionally, like if I'm sipping my coffee on my porch, I'll be like, oh, die someday. What happens when we die? Do we go anywhere? And the thing is, and this is, I'm going to be coming at this from a non-theistic view. So like, if you're listening to this and, you don't believe in life after death, that's fine. This isn't pinpointed to any particular religion, this is going to be coming from people's research, other areas, and we're just
right out his butt.
Right out. I'm going to pull this out my ass. Well, to start off, we're going to be exploring. I'm going to talk a little bit of what's known as end of life experience. Now, it's not something don't confuse that with like a near-death experience. These aren't people who die and then come back. These are people
people in nursing homes.
Yes, these are people in nursing homes. These are people are in hospice. These are people who they're not going to get better. This is it. This is the end. There's no more tomorrows. And a lot of what I had discovered and gathered from is from actual research, and not from just like your everyday type. Like these are people in that field. One such person is Peter Fenwick. He's actually a neuroscientist, and he started doing this study in the 1970s where he with the permission of said people, he was able to go in, and I think he worked and observed hundreds, I think thousands of people who were at the end. And so a lot of common things that he discovered. And the other thing about this is that he came at this from a
It's gotta be a sucky job.
It is.
It's like, hi, honey, how was your day today?
It was with another watched another person die. No, well, I mean, it can't be any different. I mean, like, think about hospice workers, and part of this podcast I'm going to talk about is also hospice workers who have observed this as well. It's not just him. So
well, at least they're not the ones spending their days going, so, hey, what's it like being almost dead?
Yeah. Hey, do you see a light? It's red and fire. No. So one of the first things that is a commonality about the end of life experience was your normal, what you would kind of consider is visitation. People, a lot of them had observed deceased relatives coming to see them. One of the examples he came across over and over and over again were usually it would usually be like a day or maybe 2 days tops before they actually died. And these are people who have been lingering for some time, but it would only happen right at the end. And they would start getting visits from people who have already died, sitting by their bedside. One such lady in one of his reports, she actually had mentioned seeing them walking up and down the hallway. She's like, they've been walking up and down the hallways, and every now and then they'll come in and say hi to me. And they'll be like, it's getting close. Don't be afraid.
We got to get your steps in one last time.
Yeah. Yeah. Get the steps up. So it's like family members.
Family members, friends. I mean, all the above.
Angel of death.
No angel of death. No. The one thing that you could use as an argument in the positive that this might be true is that none of these reports formed, like I said, any kind of theistic view. Nobody said they saw Jesus or Muhammad or anything based in any type of religion. And the neat thing is none of these people know each other, and yet these were the commonalities that he discovered.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I don't know the format of this.
She thinks we have a format.
Yeah. Like James will be like,
Just guess, so I don't want to overstep. So I was like, I want to jump in. So is this like across many cultures, or is it a cultural thing?
so I'm glad you asked that. That's actually, I was going to get into that, but yeah. Now, the one thing he did discover was in different cultures, they would have different experiences. So, and I'll get into that.
So by the way, real quick, so you're off for anybody watching the video. You're currently off screen except for your hands. So you have this awesome like Dr. Claw thing going on.
Next time, gadgets.
And I think that's how you should always appear on screen.
I'll get you. Yeah, no. So that was one of the commonalities. Now, as they would start to getting closer, they would kind of start crossing over, coming back, so they would observe things. Now, going into what Heather just asked, depending on the cultures, they would have different experiences. So one thing he discovered in Japan is they oftentimes came to like a black river. It would be more like that black river. Whereas here in Western culture, it was the tunnel with a light. So yes, it would vary from culture to culture because so it would change depending on. And the one thing that he and this is the only thing is he can only summarize from is that part of your end of life, it's spawned from what you expect. So in the sense of the idea or the belief was that you sort of create your crossing over in the sense of how you perceive it, because the thing is, the idea is it's your consciousness, and the whole concept
is customizable.
Yes, I mean, actually, I know. I mean, you're joking, but in a sense, like in one of the reports I came across, and this was a near-death experience, this woman had drowned and she had found herself in darkness and she was scared. It freaked her out. And for the longest time, in this situation, she wasn't sure what was happening. And then she saw a light and she, of course, went towards it. And then as she got closer to it, she was approached by, at first, she observed it as sort of this being of light. But as she was able to focus more, she realized it was her deceased grandmother. And the neat thing about that experience was that she mentioned, she's like, I was so scared for a moment. And her grandmother says, well, you created this. She's like, this is what you expected to see. So this is what you did see. She's like,
You can quite literally create your own hell.
that too. I mean, that's the thing is like the idea or the concept is that this is your consciousness. You have to stop thinking of it as a concrete, unchangeable place. It's the belief or the idea is that you're entering into another dimension, but you're entering in a dimension of, that's built more off consciousness. So you create what you see, you make the world around you in this sense. So yes, the other thing that he observed was lights in the room. The lights, people would observe little balls of light, little flashes that they could not explain where they were coming from. And then at the very end, shapes coming out of the body. This is the moment that the last breath's taken. People would, sometimes it looked like smoke or just like a shadow or a vapor. Lots of times coming out of the top of the head, which is where the brain is,
So who's seeing this? Like the hospice?
Anybody that's there. Like this is compiled from anybody who's witnesses. Family, friends, nurses, hospice workers, doctors. These are people in the medical field. Like these aren't just like your everyday folks. These are people in the medical field observing this, who their job is around the dead. So, and he continued this study. He's still alive today. Oh yeah, and some other things, but you can kind of dismiss this, like birds. They would observe birds appearing in windowsills, but only near the end. Never before and never after. I know. Is it a cardinal?
What kind of bird? Yeah, I was about to say it could be a cardinal, a dove, a buzzard.
Well, something wrong with you. There's an old wise tale that people come back and visit us as cardinals. And I've got a story for that later, part of the story. So the other thing that he talked about too with these end-of-life experiences were the people that it affected around them, the people that are being left behind. One of the things that is interesting that struck a chord with me and was that one of the things he observed was that if they died unexpectedly, like, this actually, from what I remember now, he wasn't just going to hospitals, but he was also just people who died randomly, quickly, unexpectedly. Oftentimes, when he would interview people, there was two different types of encounters that he recorded. If you were awake at the moment that they died and you're like you're at work, a lot of these people commented that around the time that they found out later that the person died, they crossed their mind, they came into their mind randomly. Sometimes feelings of a catastrophe would just suddenly out of nowhere hit these people. The other encounter is if they died while you were asleep. Many of these people said, that they came to them. One lady said that unbeknownst to her, she woke up or she was in a dream. Her son came to her, and her son lived in England, and she, if I remember correctly, lived in Australia. And when she saw her son, he was soaking wet. And she was like, what is going on? And she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I just wanted you to know I'm okay. Everything's okay. Don't worry. And she found out the next day her son had drowned. And so the reason that struck a chord with me is that 2 years ago, as the people in the room and James know, my grandmother died unexpectedly and unknowingly. We found out that night when she wasn't answering her phone. We had gone to check on her, and we had found that she had suddenly passed away. Earlier that day, I was washing the dishes when the thought of her dying came into my mind around, and I even remember it was around 10 o'clock. And I started thinking about what I'm going to do when she dies. And then I started playing this terrible scenario in my brain about dealing with certain family members and worried about how they were going to treat me in certain situations about that concerned my grandmother and I, but it had to do with money. I'm not going to get into that, but either way, but I found myself standing there playing that scenario over my mind out of nowhere, randomly around 10 o'clock that night when I asked the paramedic, I was like, how long do you think she's been dead? He's like, I think about 8 hours, which put her death around 10 o'clock. So I kind of wondered, I was like, did she come by? So that was something that struck a chord with me in the research and going through all this. I was like, oh, that did happen to me. And funny enough, while I was working on this story and thinking about my grandmother, I don't know if you guys have seen the app with the filter. I've been playing with it. You know, the AI, the artwork. Huh? Yes. I decided for just randomly, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do one of Gran. I've got a lot of pictures of her. I'm going to put Gran's picture through this filter and I'm going to see what happens. So I'm sitting there and I'm doing this. And as I'm doing this, I look up and standing in the windowsill is a cardinal. And it's sitting on, well, it's not on the windowsill, but it's on the branch on the tree right in front of the window. And it's just looking at me.
Like, what are you about to do to my picture?
I know. That's what I thought. I was like, Gran, I just want to see what it's going to look like. Okay, chill. It's not a big deal.
It's enough that you're sending all your information to China with all these random photo filters you install on your phone. But come on, leave me out of this.
Hey, man, hey, they turned out beautiful. I'll have to show you later. But anyway, now the other thing that they observed too was that these people, and this is people, not just people dying in the hospital, but also people who just randomly died, dreamt or either dreamt of their death very recent, like as in like just like 24, 48 hours, or just within a very short amount of time before their actual death. Sometimes these people even admitted that, you know, relatives came to them and said, hey, you're going to be, you know, your time's about to be up. Like they would actually come and warn them, like,
what?
Yes. I mean, they were like, people were like, yeah, I like one lady in particular, she, or not lady, it was a grandfather. He had told his daughter that he saw his wife, the daughter's mom, who had been dead for several years. She's like, I saw her. And she was telling me that you're going to be coming with me soon. And then 2 days later, he suddenly passed away.
And then the next day, I'm like strapping up with just layers of Kevlar and in one of those like isolation bubbles.
Well, he was old. I mean, this isn't like a young man. Well, the thing is, and then you take this for what you will, but the one thing he observed in almost all these people was it comforted them. It made them not afraid. That was their whole purpose, is that they came to not make them afraid. So he said most of them were very comforted by this, that it was okay, that they had nothing to fear, and that pretty soon they were going to be back with people that they missed and loved and wanted to be with. So, and there's an even historical reference of that happening with President Abraham Lincoln. Yes. A lot of people know about that story. Heather, have you ever heard of that? So Abraham Lincoln, and this has historical significance, and it was written down. Lincoln admitted to several friends that one night he dreamt that he woke up. You know how you can dream. Yeah. That he woke up and he heard crying downstairs and weeping and wailing. And so he walked down the stairs in the White House and saw there was a coffin and a funeral going on. And when he asked the soldier, he's like, who's been killed? The soldier answered, the president. He was killed by an assassin. And this happened just a short time before Lincoln's assassination.
And then he went, "You're fired."
But yeah, so
you
there's
had one job.
Oh no, that's not the soldier's job. In fact, funny little history note: Lincoln is responsible for creating the Secret Service, but not to protect the president. The Secret Service's job back in the day dealt with counterfeiting. So yeah. The president didn't have bodyguards back then. In fact, during that day, you actually could walk up to the White House and walk right in. There's no security, no nothing. This is a different time. And because you could even go and meet with the president. He took time out of his day to meet with people who had grievances, who had concerns. I mean, whatever. He did that regularly. So yeah. And that actually went all the way up to the 1940s until somebody attempted to assassinate Truman, if I believe. And that's when security kind of went up. But anyway, I digress. Yeah. So now the other thing I had come across was certain other beliefs or certain other studies was the study through hypnosis and hypnotic regression. And I don't have the names at the moment. I'll look for them later, and I could put them in the episode notes. Was that during hypnotic regressions, and this is unrelated now to the other studies, but they came across countless people who actually not only remembered past lives, but remembered what happened at the moment of death. And one thing that these were people, once again, who didn't know each other, didn't live in the same place. This is across miles and states and, you name it. And they would observe that when they died, they were reunited with what they called the soul family. And the belief was, or rather from what they gathered from this, is that, you're often bound by the same people who you have in each life. So like us right here, by that we'll be together in the next life. And we've been together in the previous lives. We might change roles, but right now we're all friends, but we might be brothers and sisters, we might be husband and wives.
Arch nemesis.
I don't know. But but they called that the soul family, and they would go through what was called a soul review about their life, what they learned, and anything that they needed to learn. What?
Is that from the Journey of Souls book?
That might be. I think that might be it. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Journey of Souls. Yeah. The whole concept of was that you would choose your next life, and you would usually you picked your parents, you picked everything. So yeah, you did this because you chose to. You love it. Heather's over here giving me a look like,
why? So we can pick our own lives in the next life,
but you pick it on the basis of what do you want to learn next? Like what is the area in which you're wanting to grow? Because
I want to learn how to cope with wealth.
Yeah, right.
That's a skill I really need.
People who have really horrible, like even just home situations from the time they're born, not even that they create. Like they're just like, hey, I want to be born to really shitty parents.
Yeah, because they wanted to learn maybe humility, maybe to learn how to cope with loss. They talk about that too. They were like, yeah.
There's our life.
It might help if you shared the microphone with Heather.
That if our souls are willing to say, you know what, I want to go, my next life, I want to have a really horrible life, a really traumatic childhood, or really horrible parents, because I want to learn this huge cosmic thing. I don't know. That's just making me think about how to us right now, our life is so like, this is it. Like, this is our life. But really, it's so nothing. If our soul is willing to say, I want to have a really crappy life so that I can learn this.
One of the, in that book, that same book, they talk about, where do bad people go?
Yeah.
Right. So like what happens to them, and there's no hell, like they're taken aside and by their guides, and they, go through their lessons and things like that. So typically, like according to this book, right, people that did really horrible things might choose to go and be in those bad situations. Yeah, kind of like, and to kind of just be on the other side of it and learn lessons from that perspective. Not saying that that's every situation, but according to that book, that might be a reason why you would be in that situation.
So yeah. And then going to back to the end of life experience and Dr. Fennec. He had two friends who were both part of his experiments and research who died eventually. And the gentleman, they all three had that, whoever died first, if they could come back and let them know. And of course they didn't in that sense, but his one friend, he was near the end, and unfortunately Peter could not be there with his friend for reasons. But shortly after he passed away, his friend's wife, she's like, he wanted me to tell you something. She was like, it's everything we thought it was.
So please tell me you're going to go into the skull experiment at some point.
Yeah. That I'm going to say for different, because that's communing with spirits itself.
Well, the reason I bring up the skull, the afterlife experiments, the skull project, is that during the course of their study, one of the scientists on their team died.
Yeah, he died.
He was, I believe he was an atheist as well. And according to them, he was so dedicated to the project that his contributions to the project continued after death. So he started communicating with his colleagues from the other side to keep the experiment going.
Yeah. He even because his death was even caught on video because he was at a symposium, and his heart just kind of gave out, and they tried to save him, but he wasn't a young man, but yeah, he passed away. And the skull experiment kind of, and I want us to do another, we're going to do a future episode, I think, where I think James and I have watched that documentary countless times.
It's a really good documentary if you can find it, is the caveat.
I've given you a link like 3 times. It's on.
Well, no. I know where to find it, but I'm just. It's
on you.
It used to
there's
just
a link
be on Netflix, but
yeah, it should be. It's on YouTube.
That is no longer true.
You can watch it. I've sent you a link too.
What's it called?
The Afterlife Experiment, or I will.
So the Afterlife Experiments, keep in mind, is quite a few years. Wow, it's probably a decade old now. Whereas the Skull Project has been continuing ever since. So I'm sure there's been new developments.
So the Skull Experiment ran for 20-something years, and they concluded back when that documentary was created. But when they, and they say that in the documentary when they say they concluded, but I don't think they've stopped.
No. If the last time I went to their website, they were still trucking along.
Okay. And these are, once again, I don't know, some of them are scientists, I know definitely. These are a group of scientists who have been experimenting with seances and like ghosts and mediums, trying to make contact with the other side to learn more. And like I said, I try to come at this from a very objective, non-theistic view. But if I'm being completely honest, I also come at this from somebody who wants there to be an afterlife. If you don't, that is okay.
Well, you are a Catholic werewolf, as we've established previously.
I know. But the thing is, it's like I have really dwelled on this a little too much sometimes, because it's something that I think about, I wonder about, but I really want there to be something after this. This life's not enough for me. I have unresolved to be a little personal here. I have unresolved issues with people that I loved and lost that I'm hoping I'll get to meet with them again so we can talk. And like I said, I don't take necessarily a non-theistic view. I'm not saying any particular religious deity is going to come and guide you. I don't know. And I don't even know sometimes what I believe. But I keep an open mind, and that's one of the things why I've been so fascinated by these scientists, not like just like everyday person, but like neuroscientists, doctors. These are people in the medical field who are actually engaging and looking into this to try to see if there is something. And whether you believe or not believe, you can't deny the fact that there is a commonality that with these people near the end of death. And you can argue like, well, it's the brain shutting down and, various other, and you may be right. You may be right. But then again, maybe you're not. Because the whole idea is consciousness. You call it soul, you call it spirit, but it's consciousness. It's you. And does consciousness exist beyond physical death? And that is where these people are trying to determine, like, if they can find any kind of viable, and they have in certain senses. Like, the brain is supposed to shut down, I think, within just a few minutes after the heart stopping, but they have discovered that people were still, people who were able to resuscitate in near-death experiences, their brain was still active. They observed things, they saw things, they experienced things. There wasn't just a blackout. So, but anyway,
so one of my favorite word pairings as far as this topic goes was, and this is a shout out to my friend Justin, who's probably listening. The term once deployed is I think they coined the term chaotic uncertain. And if you're familiar with D&D, you know what that's a play off of. Is like I've always loved that description.
that's a good way of putting it. But yeah. And the other thing, going back to my grandmother, she and I loved talking about death. We used to laugh about it all the time. She would be like, "Why do we always get on the subject?" And I was like, "Because it fascinates us. We're fascinated." We were always, me and her, and I said, but we had an agreement. Like, I was like, "When you die, if you can come back, tell me what happens. Tell me how it goes." And she was like, "I'll try." Now, I wish I could tell you and the viewers, yeah, after she died, I looked out in the field and I saw her spirit standing. No, I never saw any of that. I can say the night she died, I was at her lake house where she had passed away, and it was nighttime. And I went out on the dock to grieve and feel what I was feeling. And when I went out on the dock, this is in a cold January night, and it was fairly clear. It wasn't too bad. And I had my moment of grief and was crying and doing what you do and not taking notice of my surroundings. And then my wife came down to hug me, and that was when I suddenly noticed I was surrounded by a wall of fog that I hadn't seen moments before. And I remember just thinking, like, that's odd, but I mean, it is cold and it is a lake, so that's normal, fog on a lake. And then I looked out on the lake, and for just half a second, I thought I saw her. I saw a light. It was just a porch light across the lake, but for just a moment, I could have sworn I saw her in her green dress. And to this day, I've always wondered, like, maybe I did. I don't know. No clue. Like I said, I don't take any position where I'm like, this is true, this is happening. It's just me exploring the possibility is all. And hoping, because I do. I mean, I hope there's something beyond this. And because, like, these people in the room, James, all the people in my life, like, I don't want it to end.
Well, it is kind of comforting to think about, like, all our souls, like you just said, like the soul family or whatever. Like, when we all die, maybe in the next life we'll all be interconnected somehow.
Maybe. I do like the thought of that too. Somebody's out there like, I don't have any friends.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, so I am, religious / a theology nerd outside of this podcast, but the idea of ghosts scare the crap out of me. So I've always told everybody is like, and I've had a lot of people croak off in my life. It's like, after you croak off, just Don't haunt me. Keep your
Broke
pants on.
off. Wow.
Keep
What-
your pants on. I'll see you when I get over there. I don't need you scaring the crap out of me with your ghost stuff.
Well, wait. What's going to be different when you show up? You're going to be suddenly like, you're going to be like, oh my God. We're going to be like,
I'm
you're
gonna
dead,
have better
you
things to
sucker."
do than haunt y'all.
Wait.
Or for my own amusement, I'll haunt you, but like I'll wear like a white sheet, even though I am a ghost. I'll still do the white sheet thing with holes cut out and be like, ooh, because it would be hilarious.
Yeah.
You need to be like the most generic, lame ass ghost. You need to be like, boo.
Oh, I'm a
Fear
ghost.
me. I'm a dead ghost. I'm a ghost. I'm a spirit. And make your voice a little echoey.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put too much effort into it.
That's scared of you? James go in a sheet? That's not scary. He could be dead as a doornail. And if I know it's him, I'm gonna be like, really? I know.
Well, you're gonna
him.
know it's me because it's gonna be a floating sheet with eyes cut out.
Yeah, who else did that?
The floating sheet with eyes cut out will be like, hey James, what's up?
Well, like I'll jump at first, but then I'm gonna be like, holy shit.
But yeah, I'm not gonna waste time haunting you unless it's hilarious.
He's not gonna waste time coming to be with people he loves, comforting us. Unless
Because you're
he
gonna
can...
be there in due time. So it's like I'm gonna be doing like afterlife stuff, like whatever afterlife people do.
James is gonna be coming to us and being like, your time is coming soon. And so then the next few days
I'm
we're
just
like,
gonna do,
oh no,
I'm gonna do
oh
that
no.
every day,
every day, yeah.
and eventually I'll be
30
right.
30 years later,
Yeah.
we're like, seriously, James again.
42 years that asshole's been coming to me, being like, soon, Chris. I'm gonna be like, and then when I finally do croak, he's like, see? It's like, I
Time
told
is
you.
relative.
A broken clock's right twice a day. But anyway, oh, what? Go ahead.
You guys didn't start out with the what you're drinking thing.
I just realized that too. I was like,
I've been
James-
thinking about this whole episode because I've been.
Well,
I've
I'm
been
not drinking
loyal to our
anything.
theme.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm not drinking anything.
Well, I am
I'm-
drinking a special release from Firestone called Parabola. They put it out like once it's a special edition they put out once a year. So this is it's one of my favorite rare beers to get a hold of.
So you said Firestone?
Yeah.
So Firestone, if you're listening, we will take sponsorships if you would like.
What are you drinking, Christina?
Coke, a cola. I'm not doing drugs. Coca-Cola.
Sponsor.
Yeah, Coca-Cola, if you're listening.
Say, Heather, what are you drinking?
H2O. And if H2O, if you're listening, you'd like to sponsor this podcast, I bet they
Mother Earth, you want to sponsor us? Lafayette, what are you drinking?
Black tea.
And I'm the only lame one out. I'm not drinking anything. I've left my drink in the car and it's raining.
So I'm the only one staying on theme here.
You are. Well, I gotta drive home. It's not, hey, don't drink and drive. It's not responsible. So, I mean, I'll have a drink tonight, but when I get home. So, but anyway, that concludes my episode. If you have any,
So if you can
tales-
customize your death, so you're gonna see what you expect to see. So if some dude spent his whole life just like programming his brain to expect like a bikini car wash to show up when he dies, they'd be like, then when he's on his deathbed, it's gonna be like, hey Clifford, you're dead. It's like, if we can customize this, we need to like do it right.
I don't know if that's what they meant by exactly, but I mean, maybe. I don't know.
I expect a bunch of bikini clad angels to show up and usher me to the beyond.
James in his ghost sheet to use that voice he just used, the hey Heather, you're dead.
Christina.
I'm gonna go with the bikini clad angels with like a bucket of soapy water. Yeah, that's
Yeah. We've been doing it wrong for all these eons.
There you go. I don't know.
So if you want to join my new religion,
Well, you have one convert, Christina. Then
yeah, I mean, I'll join in too. I guess I don't know. I'd be more confused. Like,
I require a modest tithe.
only 80% of your income, so you can experience the burden of wealth in this life. So his soul can see the difference.
I need to learn to how to
different
cope
lesson
with
next
wealth.
time.
maybe I don't know. I just want like a cool car to come. I want the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
No. I want Kit from Knight Rider to usher me to the beyond. That would be freaking awesome.
Actually, I'd like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. Yeah, just appear. I'll go jump in. You all can be in it. All the people I love that have already died, just be waiting inside and be like, let's go, guys. And then just...
I mean, David Hasselhoff is optional. It's
What?
the car that's important. David Hasselhoff is optional. It's the car that's important.
Well, you know, being somewhat slightly serious, you know, in that whole TV show, you know, like TV shows like to depict people like crossing over and they're reunited with like friends, and it's usually like in some setting, like if it was like a high school drama and they died, they're back at high school and whatever. But I did actually
hell?
like, huh?
Isn't
I
that
know,
hell?
right? Yeah, I know. Yeah. But one thing I used to love the idea of is like, if James dies before me, for our listeners. So James and I, we used to go, he was always the wheelman. He had this 86 Firebird, and we would drive,
there.
we would, huh?
Oh, we're going to go there.
Yeah, we're going to go there. And we used to drive, we go on all these adventures as kids, and great memories, like great memories. So the idea that, James comes, picks me up in the Firebird, like, let's go to adventure, stuff like that. So
I have to die first in order to fulfill your fantasy?
It's only
thanks.
It's only now look, if
I'll die first for your convenience so I can show up in an awesome way to usher you on.
You know what? At this point, if I die first, then I'm gonna physically turn into one of those girls and at first be like, hey James, let's go. And then I'm just gonna go and then like change into myself but still be wearing the bikini, be like, let's go. Be like, oh, what the hell? Like,
and that's when suddenly, like, I wake up to the EMTs who brought me back.
Keep my heart going. Listen, don't send me there. And I'm gonna be like, no, it's gonna come again. Come on, buddy. You cross over. Here's your sheet. Let's go. I'm gonna throw a sheet at you. So yeah. Heather, you got any kind of special hope?
Special request.
Special request?
I know. I didn't realize when came that I would have to think about my afterlife.
Just throw Heather in with the bikini car wash. She'll get that reception as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fine. You know what? As long as you guys are there, that's what I care.
So, like, if Heather and I die first, you want us to come in the bikini car wash? Like, be like, hey, James.
I think
Sexualize us like that,
I think you're making some assumptions that weren't offered there.
I mean, you just asked Heather to come along with the bikini car wash.
No. I asked Heather to.
Oh, you want to be? Oh, okay. I don't know.
Jeez, man.
I wanted to be like just like bizarre, like weird in the sense of like Jeff Goldblum comes. You'd be like, Jeff Goldblum, which I would love. Jeff Goldblum, if you're listening, that would be a great afterlife is if you came to greet us. But something random, something you've never like. Who are you? I'm Millard Fillmore. I was the president of the United States. Why are you coming to greet me? What? Millard Fillmore? Like,
time out of his afterlife to come greet you.
I mean, yeah,
I mean, like, it's not like I'm David.
Yeah.
Like which president?
Well, depending on which one, I don't know. They may not be in any position to greet anybody. Yeah, or it's just like some random guy. Who are you? I'm Phil. I used to run the corner grocery store, 34th and 5th in Chicago. Where? Did I know you? Nope. But you're here to come get me? Yep. Come on.
And that's why there goes.
And that's why they go like, like, I'm not going with you. Like, what the heck, man? Oh, yeah. So, oh, you know what? Going into that too, man. Okay. Uh, so here's the thing. I fell down a rabbit hole last night getting this ready. Epilogue. I fell down a rabbit hole, and some of it was like I had like at one point I watched a documentary about 5 people who agreed to be part of this documentary who were in hospice. They were dying, and so I watched 5 people die last night, and that was hard. You know, that was upsetting. But one of the other
really know how to party on a Friday night.
I know. Well, I was trying to get ready for this, and then, but one of the other ones, I'd never heard this. And listeners, you take this with a grain of salt. I did. It's neat and kind of interesting if it's true, great. But you know, so these
listeners, we don't actually have to watch people die in preparation for this episode. It's just the thing Chris does to make himself sad.
I guess. I don't know. But these mediums, I think it was in the 1960s, they supposedly channeled the spirit of this man who died in like the 1920s. And it's like a 9-minute long little thing, but he talks about what happened the moment he died. He got struck by a trolley, and he didn't even realize. He's like, he notices everybody standing around this guy.
Wait, by a trolley? Like, those are really slow.
Well, not, or, see, 1920, DC, yeah. Well, depending on where you're at. So, or
I'm just thinking like the Austin Powers scene where like the guy gets run over by the
steamroller.
By the steamroller.
No, they don't go that slow. No, they actually go at fairly decent speed. I mean, like 20. I mean, like I would say at least 20 or 30 miles an hour, like a regular car. He just, and for whatever reason, anyway, the story goes he got killed in the street, got hit by a vehicle, and he didn't even realize it was him until he looked down. And he was like, "Oh." He's like, "I'm dead." And the story went that he explained that for a while he kind of just lingered, and he started riding the trolley car because he didn't really know what else to do. He's like, he not really believed anything in life.
That's kind of sad.
Well, it didn't stay that way. It actually works out really great.
I guess I'm just gonna ride this trolley.
Well, no. Well, like he was just sort of like, so he was kind of hanging around.
Great trolley ride.
He was hanging around the town that he lived in and that he knew. And then he was like, one day, this woman whom just turned around and started talking to him. And he's like, "Wait, what?" And she explained, she's like, "Oh, I've been here for a while." She's like, "But it took a while for you to notice me." And she was like, "What are you doing here? This isn't where you need to be anymore." She had come to help him. She was a dead person too. But she later explained to him, and this is all, take this grain of salt, but that one of the things that she would do is she would come down and help people who like him, who were just sort of like, "Well, I don't know where to go," or, like maybe that's why we have ghosts. But she was like, she eventually took him with her, I guess heaven or ethereal plane or whatever. But he said when he got there, it looked like this really nice house. And she even explained, she's like, it's not, yeah, this is where, but it's not real. She's like, once again, the whole kind of you created, she's like, it doesn't exist in that sense. It is, but it's real. And he even had a cup of tea, just like he remembered, because he hadn't had one in a while. And she's like, yeah, she's like, you think, and there it is. That's all it is. You're a projection of your own consciousness. And so you create the world around you. And that was the only reason why it caught my attention, is because it was very much like what that other guy was talking about.
Somebody's hypnotic regression?
It's a medium. No, this is a medium who the ghost is supposed to be talking through. Yeah. And now, disclaimer, I'm hugely skeptical of mediums because I'm just hugely skeptical of people. So that's why I say take it with a grain of salt.
They can't be hot. They can't be cold. They're just right there in the middle. You can't trust folks like that.
And yeah, they're medium. They're just medium. But anyway, yeah. So
if you're a dead person, please email us at littleshophorrors@gmail.com and tell us your
James,
story.
why did we just get an email that just says, Yeah. President Fillmore, if you are here, no. So anyway, and she explained that she had died about 30 years before that. She'd had a seizure and passed away. And she kind of ended up in the same situation as him. She didn't know what to do. And her mom came and got her. Now, the neat thing about this story goes is that he then asks, he's like, well, where's your mom now? And she's like, well, she's out right now. She's working. And he's like, what? She has a job? And she was like, yeah. She's like, you can do all kinds of things. It's up to you. And the story goes that the woman's mother, she had to take it upon herself that she goes down and gets children that have like died, like infants and babies. Like she goes and gets them to bring them. And that's what she did. But anyway, yeah. But as he's sitting there drinking his cup of tea, he's like, it's exactly as I remembered it. And she said, yeah, it'll be exactly as you recall it, because you're creating it from your memory. And he went on to basically explain, he says at that point, he's like, it's wonderful. It's another plane of existence. But he didn't talk about God. He was like, there's this light at the center of it all. And it's beautiful and it feels like love. But that's all he really ever said. He never talked about, it being God. But yeah. And then he was like, this whole like, what was it? That, whatever you value in life, and he's like, in the end, it's just love. He's like, you find out that that's all it was. It's just like love is the only thing that really ever had merit. To love each other, to love, to love other people. He's like, that's really what you take with you.
That seemed to be the concluding theme of the skull experiment as well.
Yeah. In fact, that's a commonality amongst all of them, is that the one thing that is always treasured above everything was love. That the more you loved in life, the easier it was for you to move on. They said people who valued the wrong kind of things, it was harder for them to accept. They did eventually, even the worst kinds of people, they were like, eventually they came to even understand that money, power, any of that, it doesn't matter. It's nothing. It's fleeting. It was just love. And that's what he's like, it's an abundance of was love. Same thing with these people in their end of life experiences. They talked about feeling tremendous amounts of love. People with near death experiences, same thing. So I don't know. It's something to ponder, because at some point, no matter what, we are all going to do it. And that's why I've been interested in it and why I've wanted to know more, just because until I do, it's going to be something that we ponder, consider, think about, because nobody can honestly tell you in the end what happens. You cannot say, well, there's nothing after life. Well, you don't know. We haven't died. Just as we can't say that there is something, but we can try. We can, look at the things that are, I don't know.
You should do a past life regression thing and see if they can put you in that space before you like go into another body or whatever, but you're like in that in between.
I would be interested to try that. I would be interested, but I'm like, I don't know. Somebody, one of the things they talked about that I came across today was they said, if you're ever wondering if you have a past life, they were like, think of a place, or, has there ever been another place that you felt drawn to? Has there ever been a song you felt drawn to? Something that was familiar. And I've always had two areas. Like I always think of 1940s New York, like when I look at pictures and stuff, I feel something like this connection. And the other weird thing was Civil War documentaries. Like when I watch like things about Civil War, like it feels familiar. And
so what if mine is like 50-20?
Oh, if you're from the future?
Yeah.
They didn't talk about that. That was the one thing that I wondered was, as far as time being linear, like, do we go back and forth in past lives, or do we progress? Like, could I be, like James has said, like, could we be regressed and have memories of a life that actually is like in the future? Oh, and some of them even talked about in past regressions, some people who weren't born on Earth. They were aliens. They lived in other planets, which I didn't get any other data on that of anything about that, but I really want to go look into that, because that just sounds kind of neat. Because, because if you accept the idea that, which I do, that there is life on other planets, and then if there is like reincarnation, like, are we just stuck to being reincarnated on the same planet, or could we all like end up like on another planet?
Like, human souls kind of tend to group together, and the other alien species kind of tended to, but you can, if you choose to, you can. It's just that we typically just stay in our group.
Yeah, that's something he had said. Yeah,
So we have clicks.
Yep. Are you really surprised that humans have clicks?
Not at all.
Well, it sounds like all life forms have
but that
clicks.
the rest of the species also do is kind of, man, it's kind of sad.
You hear that thunder? Ooh, that's the bell. That's the bell. That's the end of the podcast. We want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm so glad that Heather and Lafayette could join us. And please, if you have any experiences in this area, please feel free to email us at littlepodcasthorrors@gmail.com.
Especially if you're dead.
Yes. If you have email, that'd be sweet. Loved it, man. I mean, so a lot of people like to email right now. But yeah. And then please like and share this episode because we want to do this full time.
Yeah, feel free to donate as well if you feel so compelled.
If your past life is compelling you to donate.
With that said, see you later, everybody.
Hail Ashtar.
Oh, hail Ashtar.
I'm so proud.
Hail Ashtar.